Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker and today is our Set Championship Showcase. First of all, shout out to Kim Kawa from Podkana's fiance. She made this for me. You may have seen this in the background of one of my more recent videos already, but I remembered I hadn't actually shown it off yet. So yeah, huge shout out to Kim for doing that for me. You'll see we started off the video there with a little showcase montage of all the photos that I've been set from people flexing their Set Championship goodies. A shout out to everyone who has sent out either a picture or a list to me, courtesy of both Twitter and email. I've had over 150 deck lists, which is insane. But yeah, if you're new to the channel, I do this every Set Championship. We have a big Set Championship showcase. Anyone that wins the promo card sends me their list and we just show them off, go through and basically celebrate the community. Like I said, I've been sent an awful lot of lists, so all of the lists that I've been sent up until this time of recording, I have split them in half. You're getting this video now and then you'll get the other half in the next couple of days, and then I will do one more video covering the Set Championship deck lists after the season ends. So if you have already sent me your list, if it's not in this video, it should be in the next one. And if you have a Set Championship still coming up, don't worry, there'll be a chance to still submit that winning deck list, hopefully winning deck list, and get featured in the final video. But yeah, these videos are never an intense look at the deck lists. The more meta, the more standard your list is, the least amount of time we'll probably spend looking at it. We'll of course show everything, but I might spend a little bit longer on the more spicier brews. You do get a lot of meta decks for Set Championships, but you also get a lot of fun decks, and especially if people enter one tournament, win their promo, win their play mat, and then they might play with a more fun deck for other events that they're participating in. So yeah, a lot of lists to look at, so we're going to jump straight in. A quick shout out to the channel sponsor, Cardmarket. If you're looking for Lorcana singles at competitive rates, then check out Cardmarket. But let's look at some Set Championship Decklists! So we'll start off by taking a look at some Blurple, which is definitely a fan favourite ink combination, and this was one of the more popular combinations for deck lists that I've been sent for the Set Championships this set. So yeah, you love to see that. The addition of Sail the Azurite Sea, I think, is the main contributor towards Blurple performing a lot better in general. Of course, it had some good showings at the European and the North American Continental Championships, and yeah, this Sail the Azurite Sea is just incredible. Sapphire in general, just having 8 inkable turn 2 ramp cards is huge, and the genies are definitely a great addition to this deck. But yeah, we've got this bounce package that we're gonna no doubt look at a lot. Amethyst with anything tends to be quite good. We've got the snakes, we've got the foxes to bounce things back to hand, we've got the crab to give challenger when he enters and leaves the board, that can help you with big bodies and locations, of course those goats that are just game enders, rabbits to draw more cards. You love to see it. The one drops, we've got 4 Chernobyls, 4 Diablo, and 2 copies of Magic Broom. Chernobyls, like all of these giving the potential to draw a card. Chernobog's followers having the 2 strength, meaning it can check certain things like opposing one drop Robin Hood or a Cinderella Ballroom Sensation. If they don't hit the storm, then maybe your Chernobog survives to sort of keep that in check. But yeah, the Broom's also providing draw, but the 1 strength is super good if you're up against aggro decks. If they open with turn 1 Merfolk and your only 1 drop is the Diablo, as good as the Diablo is, then that can be really, really bad. So these Brooms helping to have more characters that can combat those aggro strategies. And again, just the card draw potential. And yeah, Diablo, the card draw is pretty much assured from the moment he hits the board, unless you bounce it back to your hand, making it a much better character to put out in the mid to late game if you're facing down things like Be Prepared and Big Sisu from the Ruby Amethyst or the Ruby Sapphire decks. Diablos are a lot safer to put down because even if they are immediately removed, at least you're definitely getting the draw off. Chernobog's followers always has to wait a turn. Magic Broom, you can play the Broom and then play a character and immediately draw, which can be fine, especially if you're utilising libraries, but sometimes you want to stick the character to the board. You want it to get at least 1 quest off before you utilise that draw. But nonetheless, all of these 1 drops, super good, super important. You'll see different counts as we look through the different Amethyst decks for players that are prioritising different things. Mention the Tipo, great ramp. These 3 genies, of course, evasive questing for 2. They've been really big in most Amethyst decks. Since Set 6 came out, really. They have fallen off a little bit in Ruby Amethyst. Some credit definitely due to Ed, who is the North American champion. and found success with a Ruby Amethyst list that wasn't playing Genies. Admittedly, it was very much built to beat the Ruby Sapphire decks, but in general, I'm seeing less Genie in Ruby Amethyst, and I've actually dropped my Genies completely. Maybe I'll go back to a 1 or 2 count, but in Blurple or EA Tempo or Amethyst, I think any other... I think there's reason to play none or a low count in Ruby Amethyst. In every other Amethyst deck, I think you normally run the 2 to 4. So yeah, great addition. We've got 2 copies of Bell here, which can help in the Genie Wars, and just loads of niche situations where you've got a couple of damage sitting on a crab, a snake, something like the big Elsa. Either of the Elsas, then this spell can certainly come in handy. The 4/4 stat line is nice and questing for 2. And yes, the Elsa, this 5th Spirit, having Rush and Evasive, being able to exert something on play. Good for Diablos. It punishes opposing Amethyst players that try and sit with a bog or a magic broom. Immediately remove that. A little niche, but the Elsa plus the crab is also a way to get round an opposing Maui shark that's just sitting there questing, feeling safe. Of course, you need 8 ink to do it, or to have already stuck the Elsa safely, but it's certainly an interaction that's important. 2 copies of Donald Duck for nice ramp, and again, 3/4. We'd like it to be 4/4, but even if Donald is Medusa'd, we don't care. He got his value as soon as he was played. And questing for 2 is nice. 3 copies of Hades, because of course this deck needs the removal that it can get. Of course, we want to control the board as well as we can with this Amethyst package, but sometimes something just got to go straight away. So Hades is great for that. 2 copies of the Floodborn Elsa to shift onto our 5th Spirit. Although with the way we're ramping, then there's good odds that we can just play this straight without having to shift. But of course, if we do shift, being able to immediately quest is really good. But yeah, just freezing a couple of characters. She's got a great stat line, questing for 3. Elsa 5th Spirit. Spirit of Winter is still a super good card for Azurite Sea. Of course, 1 copy of that Finders Keepers, which is a super strong Amethyst card. You see play occasionally, usually in an Emerald Steel heavy meta, but I think in Blurple it's perfectly good. 4 copies of Friends and 2 copies of that super annoying McDuck mana that can really win games if you can play this after your opponent plays a B-Prep. Just any situation where your opponent doesn't have the board state to be able to combat this, you have to be careful playing locations against Amethyst decks dependent on their hand size and the board, because combinations of crabs and foxes can just remove them, and if they're Ruby Amethyst, you also need to worry about Mauis. But even against Ruby Amethyst, if you can time it right, then a McDuck mana can just win the game, and as is the case against anything. So super big fan of this list by Zero the Hero. We got Bonk here, who's playing a version with this Alice, who we'll talk about more when we start looking at the blue steel lists. But this Alice, super good, 3-cost uninkable, 1/4 quest for 2, ward, and ahoy. When this character quests, another chosen character of yours gets +1 lore and gains ward until the start of your next turn. So her having ward in and of herself is great, meaning she's not getting brawled, so you should always get this ability off, outside of if you play Alice later on in the game and they have access to a B-Prep or a Sisu, something that doesn't target, that can, or a B-King Undisputed at the right time, you never know. But usually Alice is going to get her value. She's been doing wonders for blue steel, which again we'll get to, but in this deck again can be perfectly fine, giving ward and extra lore pip to things, give it to the genie, to the rabbit. That seems super cool to me. We're playing 2 copies of Olaf here, which are better against steel decks specifically. Generally speaking, I just think the Chernobyls, the Diablos, and the Brooms are ultimately so much better than the Olaf and the Cogsworth. While the Olaf and the Cogsworth certainly do have their niche uses, I think they are against specific decks. Definitely the Olaf. Whereas the Bog, the Diablo, and Broom can be good, decent to very good against everything. So I think I would always max these out before I start going with this more toolbox 1-drop variant. Cogsworth of can have some really nice use cases, especially with the Merlin Crab, giving himself Challenger 3, and then with the Cogsworth hitting for 6 immediately is pretty cool. Or even just giving the rush to your Cogsworth to challenge into like a Chernobog's followers that thought it was safe sitting there, something like that. The Cogsworth can be cool, but my point being, I think Bog, Diablo, and Broom, I'm always maxing these before I'm considering any other 1-drops. If I want to play more than 12 1-drops, then maybe we can talk. Other than that, pretty standard. We're seeing the 2 copies of the Library, which I think is the best Amethyst location in the game at the moment. Just that difference of 7 to 8 compared to Queen's Castle, as good as Queen's Castle has been for a long time. It really does make a difference. The existence of Maui Shark with that 7 strength straight off the bat, and crabs are just so prominent these days. Like, the crabs have been in and out of popularity. At the moment, you're seeing 2 to 3 in Ruby Amethyst, and then like the Amethyst decks, no surprise here, just they're everywhere. and most of them are running a high count of crab, and fox plus crab equals 7. So Queen's Castle is just that little bit easier to remove, whereas the 8 willpower and library, sometimes it is enough to make it just stick that one extra turn and really get your value. So yeah, I'm a fan of this list. Version here by Sylph Reent, playing 3 copies of the Mickey for additional ramp, and 3 copies of that Madam Mim, who on board gives Blanket Challenger 1, which could be really nice for fixing maths with challenges, of course. 2 copies of the Baymax, which again we'll look at later in the Blue Steel decks, but people wanting excuses to play their Continental promos of Baymax, and I can't say I blame you. On play, remove 2 damage from another chosen character of yours and gain 1 lore for each damage removed this way, and 2/6 stat line is pretty nice. Yeah, he's brawled straight away, or any of the many cards that don't like characters of 2 strength or less. But again, if you've got an ability off on play, you've already served your worth, and they're still like, make them have it and make them play it, right? Donald's, which we've discussed, 1 copy of that big Mufasa, which some people are a fan of. Again, if you go back and listen to my initial reviews of set 5, I was never too hyped on this, and yeah, his position has been very much matched where I would expect it to be. It pops up as a tech every now and again in a Blurple deck, maybe in a Sapphire Emerald deck, but overall I'm not the biggest fan of Mufasa. But when it does pop, it certainly is fun and certainly is powerful. 1 top copy of the Great Stone Dragon in here for some additional ramp. Sounds good to me. We've got Kroops here. Very traditional, very clean looking list. I like these counts of the 1 drops, maxing out the crabs, 2 Finders Keepers, and doubling down 2 manas on 1 copy of the library. Very nice. Another very clean version here by Max. 3 Hades, 3 Elsa, 2 copies of the library as our location of choice. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And our final one here by Grex, Mystic Water. They are playing the Wendy Darling, who's a 3-cost Ingable 3/1, quest for 2. She has ward and support. And hey, this support can be cool. Like, you know, in Genie Wars, you know, just giving support to your Genie. Of course, support means you do still get to quest. You get the 2 lore out of Wendy, give the support to the Genie. It's now taking out an opposing Genie, or even into like a Maui Shark if that's beneficial to your current board state. So yeah, nice interesting addition of the Wendy Darling. Everything else looking pretty traditional. So those are our Blurple decks. Again, I've split every list I've been sent, so if you sent me a Blurple list and it wasn't there, it should be in the next list. But we'll go on now to Amethyst Steel. Maybe we'll do as many of the Amethyst ones in a row as we can. And yeah, just another really strong. In fact, I think this is the second most represented in combination, courtesy of deck lists that I've been sent exclusively. But again, that's a lot of lists. Ruby Amethyst is the winner, and I'm pretty sure it's Amethyst Steel in second place. Ruby Sapphire is represented, but not as much as you might think. A lot of players choosing to just not play it for Set Championship season this time round. But Amethyst Steel still as strong as ever, and we'll start off with fan favourite Earlmeister. I've said my piece about the 1-drops. Earl knows perfectly well I do not like his 1-drops. Nonetheless, nice mid-range version here. These Calhoun are just one of the best 2-drops in the game at this point. You can just hold down boards in a way that few other characters can. One character that can is Tinkerbell, which we're playing at 2 copies of. You wouldn't always see this in an Amethyst Steel deck. Some opting to go just a little bit faster, but Earlmeister wanting some mid-range options. We got 1 copy of the library here is the location of choice. 2 Zeus and 2 Strength for a Raging Fire for the removal. Just 1 copy of Friends on the other side. Personally, I would like to change some of these counts around. I feel like going down to 1 Genie, I'd probably drop to 10 or 11 1-drops and try and add in some more Friends, maybe more Strength for a Raging Fire. But again, Earlmeister loves his toolbox variants with lots of options, and it's found in some success this season, so congratulations to him. We've got Stozza Lad here with a very clean looking version. This is much lower to the ground, nothing above a 5-cost character. We are playing 3 copies of that Elsa, and then we've got 4 Strength, 4 Zeus, 2 Library. This looks really nice and consistent. Shout out to you, Stozza. A 2-line special we got here, a location variant taking advantage of the John Silver greedy treasure seeker, who gets resist 1 and an extra lore for each location you have in play. For those locations, we've got 4 copies of the library, 4 copies of Fairy Ship, which is a simple 1-cost Inkable, 1/4 with 1 passive lore, but we are playing 4 copies of that 7 Dwarves Mine, which we'll of course look at again later in the Amber Steel decks. But yeah, you move a character here by paying 2, and you can do 1 damage to an opposing character, well, to any character. But if you move a Knight there, then you can do 2 damage, and we are playing Knights. We've got 4 Dock and 4 Happy. Happy getting evasive can be super useful in some matchups. 4 Hook to control the early game. Make sure we've got some good challengers, and of course with the library, you're much more happy to be a little bit more aggressive if you're drawing cards from characters that were at the library. 4 copies of Beast up in here, which sounds fine to me. Probably ink it against the Ruby decks and rely on your Rabbits and your library and your Diablo for your draw. But against pretty much anything else is going to be super good. So yeah, really like this list. Any excuse to talk about that John Silver is okay with me. We've got Stephen Gettle here, channel member. Shout out to you, Stephen. We appreciate you playing 1 copy of the White Rose, 1 copy of Crab, 1 copy of Benja in here as well to banish an item on play, which Benja doesn't see a lot of play these days, but never underestimate. If you can, like, especially on the play, pop their Porpsicle before they can Flavish them. That's going to be pretty annoying for Ruby Sapphire players. And he does quest for 2, and he can just be ink, but everything else looking pretty traditional here. Shout out to you, Stephen, sorry. We got 8th Oracle up in here, with another mid-range version, couple of bells, 3 copies of Fire the Cannon, so a lot of early game hate, and we're a bit more aggro, running 2 copies of that Maleficent Biding Her Time, who quests for 2, 2 copies of the Library, 2 Zeus, 4 Strength, 4 Friends. This looks like a really nice list. Shout out to you, 8th Oracle. We've got Zachary Smith, who's playing some Spice. We've got 4 copies of the Blue Fairy, who, whenever you play a Floodborn, allows you to draw a card. We're running 2 copies of the Aladdin Brave Rescuer. Nothing that we can shift onto. This Aladdin in particular shifts by discarding a location card. But it doesn't matter, just doing this on curve, Blue Fairy, and then turn 3 Aladdin, you are drawing a card, so that's pretty nice. 4 copies of the Dreadnought Jafar, another Floodborn, so we drawing cards. 3/4 stat line is pretty nice, and when he banishes a character, you draw a card. Drawing cards is king, if you're new, and it's been a while since we said that, but drawing cards is indeed king. We're playing 4 of the big bad Chen Po, who's going to block some fools. 1 Twin Fire, which can absolutely be heartbreaking. Like if they go turn 1 Merfolk, turn 2 Merfolk, Diablo, something like that, and you're able to pop them both with this Twin Fire. Bag gold. 4 copies of the Library. 4 Let the Storm Rage On. We do have plenty of 3-cost characters. 4 Dolores Madrigal, who when you play her, if your opponent has an exerted character in play, you can draw a card, and she quests for 2. And 4 copies of Jim Hawkins. Rigging Specialist. We have nothing to shift onto, but again, Blue Fairy does not require you to actually use shift, just play a Floodborn. 2 copies of Baboon. Yeah, I like it a little less traditional. Great to see this finding some success. Well done, Zachary Smith. Oh, is it... Okay, definitely should have read the entire title before I started reviewing that. Yeah, so this is uncommons, commons only. But yeah, it looks really spicy. So shout out to you, Zachary. We've got Book of Dylan here with both Library and 7 Dwarves Mine. In that vein, we have Doc and Happy. Running 2 copies of the Tinkerbell Fast Flyer. Quest for 2 on an evasive 1/3. Can be super threatening. 2 copies of Smash. Lots of characters that can be removed by this. Gantu in particular. Gantu got to go, man. I got wrecked by Gantu at my last set champ. I was humbled by Gantu at my last set championship. We'll talk about it another time. Love the addition of this other John Silver, the Ship's Cook. When you play this character, chosen opposing character can't challenge during the next turn. This is gaining popularity fast, and I loves to see it. Really nice, useful card, helping you just like win races, make your opponent essentially have a turn off depending on their board state. So yeah, I like the John Silver. This looks really nice. We got the Forbidden Mountain Lizard Kitty. Shout out to you, Lizard. We got a Lizard Kitty. We got a 2-line special here. This looks super neat. We're running 4 Doc. We're not playing locations. We don't care. We're just playing as much of our hand out as we can and refreshing with good old Doc. So we're not playing rabbits in that vein. We're of course playing some genies. 1 copy of Friends on the other side up in here. But this looks really neat overall. 4 Crab. Nice high counts of everything. Super consistent. We've got Streeser here with some Jafar mid-range. You love to see it. The Striking Illusionist. When he's exerted, whenever you draw a card, you gain 1 lore. We can shift onto the Dreadnought or the Royal Vizier that we're playing 3 copies of, who's a 2-cost inkable 3/2 with evasive. And evasive just in general is good for Diablos and for opposing genies. 3 strength isn't enough to take out a genie, but it is with a crab, or if you played a Fire the Cannons or something like that. Or Bell shenanigans. But yeah, nice Jafar version here. Of course, 4 Whole New World is the high roll with this Jafar to be able to draw 7, immediately gain 7 lore. You love to see it. I'm a bit of a fan of a Jafar if you didn't know.
I knew it! I knew he was up! I knew it!
And those are all our Amethyst Steel decks. Again, cut in half. So if you sent me Amethyst Steel and it wasn't amongst those, it's in the next one. But we move on now to EA Tempo. Just win the game. Only a handful of these lists still represented, but not as popular as it usually is is in set championships, but some players finding some success. Again, this Amethyst engine, we've talked about all these cards a lot, but from the Emerald side of things, these 4 Cursed Merfolk, which I have referenced before, again, this is another card in a different set championship, different opponent, that humbled me completely. Not that there's anything new there, but yeah, I was not a fan of this Cursed Merfolk in one of my rounds at a set championship. Shout out to you, Bath TCG, you were an absolute pleasure, but these Cursed Merfolk won't. But yeah, just high aggro Quester, and when the Cursed Merfolk are challenged, your opponent discards a card. 2 copies of Bonsai here, just a really aggressive quest for 2 character. Going to be not great into steel decks, but against anything else, this is really nice for aggressive questing and usually trades. 2 copies of a Gazelle to give something evasive out of nowhere. Take out opposing Diablos and opposing Genies out of nowhere. Again, if your opponent doesn't see it coming, that can really put the game in your favor if they play in a way that really leans into, okay, they have no outs for this, so let's lean into that. So this Gazelle could absolutely ruin some days. 4/4 Go Tomago on play, gain lore equal to the damage on a chosen character. This is just a game ender. It really makes your opponent think twice about sitting there with big characters with a lot of damage, like Maui's, Tamatoas, things like that. So a great addition for Ursa Deceiver to snipe those songs. 4 Kick Cloud Kicker to control the board a little bit. Can be a necessary card on turn 3 against opposing Flynn Sisu lines. Everything else really traditional. So shout out to you, Demasak. I'm definitely going to say some of these names wrong. Next up, we've got M. Watson with some bibbity bobbity boo. You'll love to see it. This card is a song where you return a chosen character of yours to your hand to play a character with the same name. With the same cost, not the same name, for free. Although you can play a character with the same name. In fact, you are allowed to play the exact same card you just picked up. If you didn't know, that can give you some nice shenanigans with come into play effects from Genies, Goats, Rabbits, Bells, Elsas, Cloud Kicker, White Rose, Crab, Ursula, Go Tomago. So much of this can potentially get a high roll from playing Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. So that's really cool. Along with the Merfolk, we've got a couple of Maleficent biding her times for even more aggros. This looks filthy. Shout out to you, M. Watson. Next up, we've got Zook with a 2-line special, running those Bonsais, all the aggro, no Maleficents up in here. We are playing 2 copies of Loud Tiberius Rock, who on play gives Reckless to an opposing character, and while he's on board, whenever one of your characters is banished in a challenge during your opponent's turn. No, it doesn't have to be during your opponent's turn. At any time, when one of your characters is banished, your opponent loses 1 lore. So this can really help you catch up in the race, slow your opponent down. I love the addition of 3 Prince Philip, 3/2 quest for 2 with Ward. More often than not, this is a safe character to put down short of Be Prepared, because Big Sisu's never getting in because they can't ice block him. So yeah, I love Prince Philip in EA tempo at the moment. Just shout out to you, Zook. And our last one here by Blackburn Tylo, also on the Prince Philips and the Lal Tiberius Rorks, playing 3 copies of the Pegasus, who can be super annoying and just get away with a whole lot of questing if your opponent doesn't have an answer. And running 2 copies of Sir Hiss as another answer to evasive characters, Diablos, Genies, etc. And combined with Merlin Crab, then you're taking out pretty much anything. Maui Sharks, of course, also very, very relevant. Moving on now then to our most represented deck overall, we've got some good old-fashioned Ruby Amethyst control. You know the deal. This version here by LS Lore Seekers Pro Taris, playing 3 copies of the library. No surprise, I know Taris has been a big fan of it for a long time. I think it's a lot better now. I think the Queen's Castle was always better in the past, in my opinion. I know Taris would disagree, but that's alright, bros can disagree. But at this moment in time, I absolutely think the library is the location of choice. Only opting for 8 1-drops I do think is I was going to use the word greedy. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just fine and I'm just coping too much because I hate it when I miss my 1-drop. But at the same time, I'm loving a high count of 1-drops. Don't get me wrong. There was a time where I was like 12 and I'm sticking at 12. And then I was like, I might go to 11 and that's as low as I'll probably go. I have since gone down to 10. But I will not be going any lower this format for sure. 10 feels really nice. If you miss your 1-drop, that can be really bad. Not all the time. Against EA tempo, like against a turn 1 Merfolk, then it's really bad. But it's not the end of the world all the time if you can still go like Flynn Cecil or something. So yeah, I like more 1-drops, but a couple of players still finding success just with the 8. But yeah, Flynn Rider up in here and Cecil Flynn. If you've got the character, if you control the character with the highest strength, you gain 3 lore at the beginning of your turn. and just the way this makes your opponent play the game. Even if they do brawl it and you never get a proc off of Flynn Rider, sometimes that's still fine. It's just about the way you play the game, make them play the game. In a mirror match, if they're playing brawl on their turn 4 instead of playing a rabbit or a genie or a library play, something like that, then that's usually perfectly fine. The same is true of Ruby Sapphire. If you make them brawl on turn 3 instead of the Flavisham or the Tala that they would ordinarily be able to do after a turn 2 ramp, then Flynn has still absolutely served his purpose. 2 copy of Crab in here. I'm on 3 at the moment, but glad to still see it represented. 2 Maui. I've gone up to 3 over Set Champion. I was on 2 as well, but just so much diggy hole, man. So much diggy hole, and just the increase in locations, and it's so important to have the answer to the opposing library when you need it. So I've gone back up to 3. Like the 2-2 split of ladies, 1 Sisu up in here. Most of this looking really traditional. I like more 1-drops personally, and an extra Crab and an extra Maui. I'm on a lower count of Elsa. Of course, this high count of Elsa is going to make this list much better into Emerald Steel, and you could definitely also make the argument Amethyst Steel, Steel Song, and EA Tempo. It's only really like worse against Ruby Sapphire, I would say. It's okay in the mirror. But yeah, this looks really nice. Congratulations to Taris. We've got Lorcanic here, who's playing 1 copy of A Pirate's Life, which is pretty cool. I get it. I get the temptation. Like, so many games, it really does feel like you were just 1 away from, if not winning the game, but like being able to control the board and secure victory, like, because obviously we're quite often a slower deck compared to more aggro things. So this 1 Pirate's Life, and especially because you're not really going to expect to see it coming against Ruby Amethyst, so I like the addition. Pretty cool. 2 copies of Elsa, 2 Maui, 2 ladies. We are playing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 1-drops. She loves to see it. 3 copies of Library. Yeah, this looks really nice. We've got Symphonetic Hydra. Took me a moment. Opting for 10 1-drops, which I like. The Olafs, again, like, good into steel decks, but Diablo's just so good, man. But everything else looking pretty traditional up in here. 2 genies, you love to see it. We got Nate Dogg here playing 1 copy of Be King Undisputed, respected, saluted, and seen for the wonder I am. It's been a while. Love it. Absolutely adore it. You cry if they turn to Ursula. It's 1 more song that you might mulligan into. Like, you get rid of those B preps and then you draw into a B King. Although you can play B King, of course, before B prep. So if your opponent holds off on the Ursula 2, trying to snipe that B prep, then, you know, maybe you can get away with it. And it can be it's another Tremaine effect for the Ruby Sapphire matchup, which feels really nice. These are my exact 1-drops at the moment. I love it. Yeah, nice list. Shout out to Nate Dogg. We got Lyra Apocalypse here, playing those 2 copies of Belle, maxing out on we are on the 4-3, 4 Genie, 3 Rabbit, which I think is. There was a time where a lot of players were like, yeah, these are the counts. I don't think those are the popular counts now. I think most players have gone back up to, like rabbits are too important. They're too good. We're back up to 4 of those. And then maybe on 3 or maybe even less copies of Genie. But this is still perfectly fine. And 2 copies of Belle here, of course, to synergize it with those Genies. Looks good. Only 8 1-drops. Again, I've discussed my thoughts on this, but seems fine. And found success for Lyre Apocalypse. We got Taylor here. 3 copies of Library. 2 ladies. Again, 2 Chernobog, 3 Broom, 2 Olaf. Not a fan. I'm sorry. What I'm a huge fan of, though, is 3 copies of Lumiere. I've always been a Lumiere believer. Y'all know, if you've been around a while, you know that I've been screaming about Lumiere for a while. Love this. Fixes math for challenges. Into bodies, into locations, and just is annoying for opposing cards that care about your strength, like Brawls, like Sisus, like Under the Sea, things like that. 2 copies of the Big Bad Sisu. I don't hate either. Really nice. Sometimes 2/7 is too late. So if you can shift on 6. Only 3 copies of the Sisu and Bolden Warrior, though. I'm not a fan of that. But nonetheless, congratulations to you, Taylor. We've got Smitty is great here with Rabbit Return. Playing those 4 copies of Lumiere. You love to see it. And 4 copies of Kuzco, which I absolutely get. We got no Flynn Rider here. I did experiment with this for a while. There was a time where I was like, man, Flynn just seems so bad. He never procs. They always have something that can match the strength, or they're able to just remove it with either Brawl or Ice Block plus Daring Visitor Sisu. Just seems bad, man. And I'm playing libraries and I'm playing 3 Crab. Like, why can't I just play Kuzcos and just say, like, yo, I have 12 1-drops and 3 or 4 Kuzcos that all just draw me a card. I am just going to draw through so much of my deck so quickly, and if I can combine them with libraries, then even better. Ultimately, I'm not none of that was wrong, except for the part where I decided to cut cut Flynn. Because it, like, just the high roll of Flynn is so good, and again, even if it doesn't proc, it's just about the way it makes your opponent plays the game. But my point being, I do really like the Kuzco, especially in a library-heavy list. We've got 3 copies of the Peter Pan Shadow Finder up in here, and that's mostly because we're running 3 copies of Maui Shark, who is, of course, a 6-cost inkable, 7/5 quest for 1, evasive. When he challenges another character, you can return an action from your discard to your hand, and whenever you play an action, gain 1 lore. We've got 3 B prep, 4 friends, and 4 brawl. This is pretty much all the actions you need. If I was playing this sort of build, I'd probably find room for like 1 Dragonfire, or maybe even 1 like Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, something like that, like a little bit of the burn stuff. But still, these are all very, very good actions. And of course, if you've got the Shadow Finder on the board, then this Maui immediately gains Rush, which is super cool. So yeah, really nice list. We've got Coco Melon Moon with a very traditional looking list here. Library heavy, 4 copies, 11 1-drops. I like the counts of these. We're on a 2-1 split of ladies, only 1 copy of the Madame Medusa, but we are playing the Big Sisu. This looks like a really nice list, and 3 crab in there as well. We've got DN Guyan 86, playing 2 copies of that Bee King Undisputed, 2 library, 2 ladies, 10 1-drops. Yeah, this looks really nice. Probably have a really good Ruby Sapphire matchup with these 2 copies of Bee King. You'll love to see it. We've got Swift D in here. This looks very traditional, 10 1-drops, the ones I'm playing at the moment. You'll love to see it. Once again, we're seeing 2 Sisu, which I don't hate at all, but we are seeing 4 of the Emboldened Warrior to be a shift target for it, which I'm a much bigger fan of. 2 also seems good. Yep, shout out to you, Swift. And finally, Tumar, who's playing 3 copies of the Minnie Mouse, or Minnie Mouse, always classy. My respects, dear Minnie. But again, I've discussed my feelings on playing the 1/3s over maxing out these others. Like, only 2 Chernobog, I'm not a fan. But it does make a little bit more sense in this list in particular, because we're playing 2 copies of Teeth and Ambitions Are Bad, which is a 2-cost inkable song to deal 2 damage to one of your characters, to deal 2 damage to one of your opponents. So obviously putting this on Minnie means that she can survive, and of course just taking out your own Diablo is fine because you're drawing a card. So yeah, this can catch people off guard and be an okay card for sure. Only 3 copies of Flynn. I get it. I've done it myself before. I do think it's wrong, but I've done it myself before, so I get the temptation. Going on now then to Ruby Sapphire. We've discussed some of these Sapphire cards. We've got Tala and Flavisham in here to draw cards. 4 copies of Vision of the Future to help us find our key pieces. 2 Hideaway to put those pesky locations and items in your opponent's inkwell. If you can hit an opposing dime with this, and that's really, really good. And again, we've talked about how things like the Library and McDuck Manor played on the right turn can be game ending. So having the Hideaway and as a response is really nice. 2 How Far I'll Go to help us like pivot, make our way through the deck, find the pieces that we need, and ramp. These 2 Pirates Live, I think 2 is the bare minimum you're going to see in most of these Ruby Sapphire lists. Super strong card, especially in combination with Maui Shark, who's not in this list, but most of these lists that we're about to look at do have the Maui Shark. But I suppose even without Maui Shark, this is still a super nice card. For our items, we're playing 2 copies of Lucky Dime, which is a rare sight these days. Dropped off completely for a while. Nowadays it's about 50-50 that you'll see a dime, but usually only 1. But 2 copies here, 1 Great Stone Dragon, 3 Ice Block, 4 Porpoiseful, and 2 Vitalosphere to give rush to something out of nowhere. Again, normally combined really well with the Maui Shark, but it is still a 1-cost item, which fuels the Tamatoa and the Flavisham, and being able to give rush to your Maleficent Dragon or your Sisu, even your Madame Medusa, can sometimes be necessary. 2 Daring Visitor to be a shift target for the empowered sibling, and of course there are a lot of characters that already have 1 strength, things like Merfolks, things like Daisies, and with these ice blocks we can get even more characters into that range. And we're playing 2 copies of Gaston, who I have liked in the past for Ruby Sapphire lists. I don't know how necessary it is now. Like, there were times where it was like one of the nice things to check Flynn's, and I suppose it's good for Daisies as well, but I think we've got the 2 Daring Visitor here. I suppose it's just higher odds to have an answer to a Flynn or a Daisy. So yeah, I don't hate it by any means. Next up, another list from Coco Melon Moon. A lot of the same cards that we just talked about, but we are seeing those 3 copies of Maui Shark, who can make great use of this assortment of valuable actions. So you love to see it. I love the name as well, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. Why have I never made this? I'm a little ashamed of myself that I've ever made this connection and made this reference myself. for Ruby Sapphire decks, because y'all know I'm a big Pokemon fan. Yeah, shout out to you. A version here by CSG, playing 2 copies of Mukduk Mana to develop your brain as another card to help us get through the deck, and of course a nice action for the Maui Shark. 1 copy of Let It Go for some more spot removal, and 2 copies of the Rush 2/2 Queen of Hearts, which can help against aggro strategies. And you can punish Amethyst players with their early Bogs and Brooms if they sit there, if they think they're safe. I think it's the right time for Ruby Sapphire players to be playing Queen of Hearts for sure. Next up, we've got Vizier or Vizier Villainy, love the name, with some Crimson Courage. We're seeing a 2/2 Mulan line in here, the 1-drop being a 2/3 who enters play with 2 damage, and the Floodborn being a 6-cost 2/6, quest for 2, shift 5. On play, if you shifted her, then she gets +3 strength for the turn. And when she banishes when she challenges a character, you do the same damage that you did to that character to up to 2 other chosen characters. So this Mulan out of nowhere into aggro boards, into Steel Song, EA Tempo, can absolutely shut them down. And even without the 1-drop, just the access to Vitalosphere, having this on the board and being able, if you've got at least 7 ink, and just being able to play this Mulan, banish the Vitalosphere, give the rush, give the +2 strength, that can be game changing. So yeah, nice fan of that addition. Shout out to you. We've got a filthy looking version here, also playing that Mulan line, playing 2 copies of the Super Goof with the Super Peanut powers. When he challenges a character, you gain 2 lore, and he of course has rush. And we're playing 1 copy of I Can Call the Distance, I Will Find My Way, If I Can Be Strong, I know every mile would be worth my while. I would go most anywhere to feel like I belong. Dunno, mate. Felt like it. But yeah, cool card. 2-cost Ingable Song. Ready chosen character of yours. They can't quest for the rest of the turn. Draw a card. So just keeping something safe, lovely, but re-readying your Mulan to get another challenge off and take out even more of the board, lovely. Getting another challenge off with the Maui Shark to get back another action, lovely. Super Peanut powers, lovely. See, I see you, Mr. Zum MBL. I see you, and I like what I'm seeing. We've got Hopeless here. This looks very traditional. 3 copies of the Mukduk's Mana up in there, though, for a little bit of spice. I like it. We've got Left Hand Josh playing 1 copy of the Great Stone Dragon, 1 Lucky Dime, 2 Pirate's Life for me, 2 copies of that Super Goof. Super Goof, I think, is the Set Championship People's Champion. He always finds a way. Super Goof will find a way. We've got Danny D17 up in here. 1 copy of that Maui's Fish Hook. If you've got a Maui in play, then you can activate the ability for free. And of course, we've got 6 copies of Maui here. And the ability is you can either give a character evasive into the start of your next turn, or +3 strength. Both very nice abilities to have. Moving on then to Blue Steel, which is one of the most represented in combinations amongst the decks that I've been sent anyway. You love to see it. And a couple of these lists are the Kiwi Bird version, which are very different, not playing the whole new world that you see in this list. We'll get there in a moment, but yeah, this list in particular, looking a little bit more traditional. In the past, you're just playing Fishbone Quill and our other ramp cards to ramp up as much as possible, and playing whole new world to get a whole fresh hand, tons of ink to play with. We are playing that 3/2 Jim Hawkins line. 2 cost being a 0/4, but he gets Challenger 2 every time you put a card into your Inkwell for the turn. So of course, ink for turn, and then if you ramp with Fishbone, Sail the Azurite Sea, things like that, then that Challenger can stack. And then if you shift into the 5-cost Jim Hawkins, then he does keep that Challenger, so he can hit for a whole lot. And of course, just shifting this is a way to sing our 5-cost songs, like A Whole New World. We've got Pete's here to shut down those actions, take away the Be Prepareds, or just any action, but Be Prepared is often one that you are trying to block. 3 copies of Cogsworth, a really reliable singer, and giving a blanket resist one to your characters can really mess up your opponent's math. 4 copies of Tinkerbell, nice mid-game threat. 1 copy of Arthur, who's a 7-cost uninkable 3/6, quest for 3. He does shift, but we're not playing a shift target. And on play, chosen character gains Challenger 2 and Resist 2, and can challenge ready characters this turn. A really strong ability. But this deck is just better equipped to be able to make use of these high cost, sometimes uninkable, really powerful characters. Like sometimes you see the Simba fighting Prince up in these lists who is inkable. But yeah, this Arthur ability is really strong. 4 Tamatera, of course, to combine with our items and these lucky dimes. 3 Fire the Cannons. We've got 2 Let It Go, 1 Zeus, 3 copies of Grab Your Swords, which I imagine caught some people off guard. Not many people playing this these days. And now we move on to the Kiwi Birds version. This one by Harlan Sweet, who is one of the originators, along with Jack Shadows. Link down below will be a video by both of these guys talking about this deck in great detail. I highly recommend you go and check it out. Both awesome guys, and they have very much popularized this new way of playing Sapphire Steel. We're not playing Flavisham, we're not taking time to draw cards and play Whole New World and ramp. We don't care about any of that. We are just looking to curve with big, annoying, high-questing guys. We've got 4 copies of Mickey Mouse here, who has been dubbed Sticky Mickey because he can be pretty hard to remove. 1, 2, and resist 1 is really nice. We are playing a 4-4 Robin Hood shift line, but he's not here to sing. He's just here to be a big body that can quest, that can threaten the board, and of course gaining lore even when he banishes another character, same as Calhoun does, which we see 4 copies of here. Doc, again, we're not drawing cards, we're just playing out our hand every turn. Ink, play a character, play out 2 characters, play out 3 characters. So we're going to deplete our hand, we're going to want this Doc, and of course Alice is really the character that brings all of this together. We looked at her earlier. Just giving ward and an extra lore pip to a character is amazing. 3 copies of John Silver to slow down the opponent for challenges, 4 copies of Pete to shut off the actions, 2 copies of that big bad Scrooge McDuck, who's a 5/5 quest for 2 on a 4-cost uninkable, Pluto to be the goodest of boys and protect our questers, to protect our Alice, protect our Smees, our Scrooge, whoever. 2 copies of that Baymax. Again, we've got a lot of big bodies here, so good odds that we can heal something and gain some extra lore while sticking another big guy on the board. The Cogsworth, and 4 copies of the big bad Gantu. We like Gantu. I don't. I was humbled by Gantu last weekend. Absolutely humbled. But yeah, he's a 5-cost inkable 4/3 quest for 4. Ruby Amethyst can't deal with this. It just can't. Even if Ruby Amethyst goes first, you need, like, the Gantu player needs to have nothing else on board to enable a Tremaine. A couple of those players were playing Beaking Undisputed, so maybe there's a couple that can maybe get around it, but I couldn't, and I was on the draw, and they went Gantu followed by Gantu, and I cried. But yeah, he's a big boy, and if you give him more lore, like he needs it, but more importantly, ward, then that is, of course, a huge courtesy of the Alice. And we're playing 3 McDuck Manners, and we're still playing 2 Baboom and 4 Strength or Raging Fire for when somebody's just gotta go. And yeah, this deck is finding an awful lot of success. Again, link down below will be these guys talking about it in a lot more detail. And I do actually know the story of why it was called Kiwi Birds. I didn't, so I asked Harlan and Jack to explain it to me. And I'm not going to tell it now because this video's already gone on too long. But the next video, in the next couple of days, I will... I'll tell the story. So yeah, moving on, we've got Michael here with a very similar version, the only difference being 1 copy of Twin Fire. Oh, and 2 copies of Aurora, who gives the Dreaming Guardian, who gives Blanket Ward. Great, more ward. Just what you needed. We've got Voidrix here. This version looks exactly the same as the version we just looked at by Jack and Harlan, so shout out to you. We've got Gert Bilbo here, choosing to find room for a Fire the Cannons and a Let It Go, but everything else looking very much the same. We've got the Wizard, or V Wonderland here, with Harlan Shadow's Kiwi Bird list. Exactly the same list, you love to see it. Clearly, the Wizard felt the need for no changes. He is a believer in the Kiwi Bird. We've got Ocean's Tempest here, who is playing a more traditional blue steel list, but with no Whole New World. We are playing Fishbone Quill. We do be ramping, but we've got the Flavisham. 3 copies of Cheecha. That's our other draw engine. So, of course, Cheecha, the second time you ink in a turn, you draw a card. So, if you curve Cheecha into Fishbone Quill, of course, on turn 3, you ink to 3, and then you play the Fishbone ink again, so you're immediately drawing another card, or just using Sail the Azurite Sea, or any of these ways that we can ramp, then Cheecha can draw us more cards. We've got 3 copies of the Baby Jim Hawkins, but no Floodborn, 2 copies of that Fighting Prince, 1 Arthur, And 2 copies of this Aerial Treasure Collector, who, if you have more items in play than your opponent, quests for 5, my guys, and she has wards. So yeah, this is looking pretty scary. We've got Blurple here with a list very similar to the first one we looked at, utilising the whole new world. So ramp as much as possible and then replenish those resources and take advantage of that high ink pool. Coming close to the end because this video is going to overrun otherwise, but let's take a look at the Amber Amethyst decks. Only one of which that we're looking at today anyway is a hyper aggro version. We've talked about a lot of these Amethyst cards are playing 4 copies of Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, which is just an instant gain 2 lore. 4 befuddles, control that early game and make sure that our low cost, high questing characters are safe in the early game. The Daisies, the Lilos, the Maleficents, even playing 4 Pascals up in here. 4 Donald Duck to give an extra lore pip and be a bodyguard. 4 copies of Baloo to also be a bodyguard and to represent 2 lore as soon as he's banished. High questing characters like the Piglet, who quest for 3 if you've got 3 characters on board. Wendy Darling, who's just a 1/2 quest for 3. And 4 copies of the legendary Tiana, who, when exerted, if your opponent makes a challenge, then they have to pay 3 ink, or the character loses 3 strength, which can be very annoying for them. And then we've got 2 more mid-range Mufasa builds. This Mufasa, of course, when banished, you look at the top card of your deck. If it's a character, then you can play it for free, exerted. In that vein, Mufasa decks don't usually play a lot of non-character cards. In this deck, we're just seeing 1, the Rapunzel's Tower, who gives an extra 3 willpower to characters there. Only 1 to move there and 8 willpower. This can be a super, super annoying card. Chernabog, who you pay 1 less to play in for every character in your discard, and then you shuffle all said characters back into your deck. So this can be a cheap character by the midpoint of the game if you've gone through a lot of characters, which I expect will do, with 4 Bog, 4 Diablo, 2 Nala, who's a 0/4, a nice quester and nice to set up Rapunzel lines. Daisy Ducks, of course. We've looked at the Madam Mim Tiny Adversary, giving blanket challenger 1, so we can have aggressive turns for challenging if we feel the need. 4 Genies, 3 White Rose, 1 Peter Pan Shadow Finder, looks super nice. And lastly, this one by Illuminator of Fortune with Dale Farsa. A lot of stuff we've already looked at, but we're playing 3 copies of Dale, who's a 3/4 quest for 2, but he enters play exerted. 4 copies of Dale, who's a 4-cost inkable 3/4 quest for 1, and on play, you send the top 3 cards of your deck to the discard, and chosen character loses 3 strength until the start of your next turn, which can be really annoying. And 2 copies of Chip and Dale, who can shift for 5, 6/6 quest for 3, and whenever you put a card into your inkwell, you can add a character from your discard to your hand. Next video, I'll tell a short story about how I was destroyed by Chip and Dale at one of my set championships. Yep, absolutely humbled me. We're playing a Queen line in here as well to manipulate strength. So yeah, looks a lot of fun. And that's going to bring us to an end because this video has super overrun. Still need to look at Sapphire Emerald, Emerald Steel, Ruby Amber, and Steel Song. And of course, all of these lists that I've looked at, there's a part 2 to them. So yeah, I'll do my best to get through more in the next video. Sorry if your list didn't make the cut today, but I promise I will get through all of the lists that I'm sent before the end of the season. Well, maybe not before the end of the season, because I've got one last video to do that I want to do after the season, but nonetheless, you get what I mean. Anyway, that's going to bring us to an end. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show your support, and we'll see you soon.